What is up, beautiful people? It's your girl Cam, and I am back with another Friday book review. I want to take this time to welcome you to Piece of the Plans. If this is your first time visiting my channel, I hope you find some inspiration here and that you will consider hitting that subscribe button along with the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the fun right here on this channel. If you're already a part of the fam, welcome back. Now today I have something very special for our book review. Today I'm going to be reviewing Becoming by First Lady Michelle Obama. I am so excited to tell you about this book and to give you my first-hand review of this autobiography about our former First Lady, Michelle Robinson Obama. So if you want to hear my review, just stick around. Okay, so let's get right into it. So my son, my oldest son, bought this book for me back in December of 2018. And I just finished it in June of 2020. And that is no indictment on whether or not this book is good, because I really do think this book is excellent. It's well written, it's well thought out, it's inspirational. There's lots of good, juicy information about what it's like to live inside the White House. There's lots of good information about what it was like growing up in the south side of Chicago for Michelle and the Robinson family when she was growing up. So this book really is very well written. I am just more of a fiction lover. That's why it took me so long to really get into this book. But the book is great, and so let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So this is Michelle Robinson Obama's autobiography, and it tells the story of her life growing up in the south side of Chicago, being raised in a two-parent household by her parents, Fraser Robinson and Marion Robinson. Now, her dad worked for a power company, and her mom was a stay-at-home mother. And I really enjoyed the way that she explained their family dynamic. Their family lived in a two-family home. Her aunt and uncle lived downstairs, and they owned the home, and they lived downstairs. And Michelle, First Lady Michelle, and her family lived upstairs in another family unit. And I love the way she talked about how close the family was and how they spent so much time together, and they went to visit each other's houses right there in those same neighborhoods, and there was just such a close connection that they had with each other. That was beautifully illustrated in this book. And one of the other things that really made me fall in love with Michelle's family was the fact that her mom stayed at home while they were little children, while Michelle and her brother Craig were young children. And I could totally identify with that, because when my children were younger, I stayed at home with them for a long time until they were in elementary school. And then when they were in elementary school, I worked, but only during the hours that they were in school. So I would put them on the school bus and then go to work for a few hours and then get off work. And by the time they were home, I was home. And to me, it just made such a big difference. Now, I know everybody can't do that. Everybody can't afford to do that. Everybody can't schedule to do that. But it just made me just feel so good to be there for my children after school, to make sure they had snacks, healthy snacks, and to make sure they had someone to help them do their homework. And I really loved spending time with my children when they were younger, and I still love spending time with them now, but especially when they were younger. And just as a little footnote, it kind of bothered me when this whole pandemic started and there were so many parents saying they wanted the schools to reopen so the kids could get out of the house. I didn't understand that. I always looked for every opportunity to spend time with my children when they were younger. Even in the summertime, I didn't like it when the summer was over. I wanted more days in the summer. I wanted more time to go to the pool and go to the amusement parks and go on hikes and go to the library and read books and do crafts at home. So yeah, I really enjoyed being a stay-at-home mom, and that was one of the things that I really identified with, was Michelle's mom, Marion, really being such a anchor in her family and such a source and resource for her children. And Michelle's parents sacrificed everything for their children. I mean, they gave them every opportunity to be great. And who knew that Michelle from the south side of Chicago was going to end up being the first lady of the free world? I mean, who knew? One of the things that really stood out to me was her love for her dad in this book. And he did have multiple sclerosis, and he was such a hard worker that he worked all the way up until he got really so sick that he could not work anymore. And that strong, powerful work ethic just really stood out to me in this autobiography. And I just got such a passion for, developed such a passion for her family and for the family dynamic in which she was raised. And it explains part of the reason why she is as great as she is. So continuing on with her life story, she did do very well in school, and she ended up going to Ivy League schools and becoming an attorney and really becoming a great woman in her own right before she ever laid eyes on her husband, former President Barack Hussein Obama. She had great friendships with people like Jesse Jackson's daughter. She spent time with their family. She developed such great friendships with other young ladies. And I really love how she explained those friendships and how she kept those friendships going throughout her young adult life, her adult life, and even throughout her time in the White House. She continued to develop and curate those female friendships and those female bonds that are so important. One of the things that really stood out to me in this book was her relationship with Barack and how they got to meet each other. And they met each other when she was working for a law firm and he was an intern, and he had an attraction to her, but she did not want to be involved with him because it was the workplace. And most of the time when we're in professional careers, we are encouraged not to have relationships with our coworkers. So she was very specific on not wanting to develop a dating relationship with him, but he was adamant and kept pursuing her. And eventually, you know what happened, that they did end up falling in love with each other and getting married. But as a footnote, I will add, to put a footnote there, I did see South Side with You on Netflix, and I did not enjoy it. No, not so much. I do think that Tika Sumpter is a beautiful actress, and I think she was the perfect person to portray Michelle Obama. I just didn't like the writing. I thought that the way they portrayed First Lady Michelle Obama was really, really harsh and very one-dimensional. And I do understand the fact that they were in a workplace and that Michelle did not want to entertain a relationship with him. But I just think that the writing of it was very one-dimensional and harsh. I don't know whose take on the story they got the script from. Like, I don't know if this is Michelle's version of the story or President Obama himself, his version of how they met. But I just did not like the South Side with You. I didn't enjoy it at all. And I just had to put that in there because I did enjoy how Michelle described their relationship and how initially she really just did not want to date him because they were in this work environment, but that he did break her down over time and she did fall in love with him. And I really love the way she talks about him, and you can tell there's genuine love and genuine admiration on her part toward him, and also love from him to her, and how he always tried to be present when he was in the home with her. So after they got married and they had children, politics was not anything that Michelle was interested in being a part of. It was just not something that she wanted to do. She wanted to be a community advocate, and she wanted to work hard to make the community better. But her aspirations were very different from Barack's, and she's very honest about that. It's very hard to kind of put your life into your spouse's life and really truly become one with that other person when you have your own goals and your own aspirations. But Michelle did a great job of explaining how she made her her distaste for politics very clear, but because she loved Barack and because she believed in his vision and in his idealistic goals for the country, she got on board with his political aspirations and she supported him 100%. So I really appreciated her illustration of her support for him as he ran for office for Senate and then for president. Now, when we get to the elections, Michelle is very clear about how many times she was basically picked apart by different political pundits and by different news anchors for her outspokenness or for her being very passionate, and how she had to really tamp down her expressiveness sometimes, which is something that I think a lot of black women can identify with. That a lot of times our passion is perceived as aggression instead of being perceived as what it is. We're passionate about certain subjects. She talked very candidly about, these are my words, but her feelings being hurt by so many different people when she was simply trying to help her husband in his run for presidency. I really love the way she talked about how all across the country she could identify with so many different types of people from so many different states and so many different counties, but there was this thread of familiarity that she could identify with, being raised in a two-parent home by hardworking parents and parents who sacrificed everything for their children. She could identify with that from coast to coast. Families all over the world who really wanted change from their government, change in their country. And I really loved hearing about the stories that she told from on the road while Barack was running for president. Now, after they made it to the White House, I loved how she described the inauguration and how President Obama invited civil rights activist as his special guest to his inauguration. That literally stopped me in my tracks from reading, and it made me cry. It really moved me to hear that the Tuskegee Airmen were invited to be a part of the inauguration, that the Greensboro sit-in, I think they were the Greensboro Nine or the Little Rock Nine, were invited to the inauguration to witness the first African American president in America's history, to sit there and witness this great occasion. That literally stopped me and it made me cry. And I remember the night that President Obama was elected, I was on the phone with my mother and we just sat there and just wept because I couldn't believe that my country was making this grand move, was making this move to elect this black man into office. And I know he's biracial. I do know he's biracial. But to elect this African American man into office, it was so emotional. And I told my mom on the phone, and this may seem corny to some people, but I told her, I understand now how your generation felt about Dr. King. Just being so passionate about this person who held the torch up for liberty and justice and for equality all over the world. And that was such a moving experience to be on the phone that night with my mother. And that paragraph where she described the inauguration just took me right back to that moment. Now, one of the really fascinating parts about this book to me was how Michelle described the security detail that is involved in the presidential security team. I knew that there was lots of security, of course, involved in being the president. Of course, I mean, he's the leader of the country, so you know that people are going to watch out for his best interests. But the way she described how many cars follow his, what is it called? Motorcade. How many cars follow his motorcade, and how there's a doctor in one of those cars, and how there are weapons in some of those cars, and how there's blood, his blood type is available in the car in case something were to happen to him. I really did not know all of that. So it was fascinating to me to hear about all the bulletproof things that have to be on vehicles, and Even when he did his acceptance speech right there in Chicago, there was glass in front of him that was bulletproof while he was making his acceptance speech, and that just hadn't occurred to me at the time. Of course, I knew that he was being protected, but just hearing the details of it was really fascinating to me. I also got a lot of pleasure out of reading all of the accomplishments that First Lady Michelle was able to achieve while she was in office, working on better nutrition for children, fitness for children, creating a garden right there at the White House, and feeding children in the District of Columbia and sending food to homeless shelters in the District of Columbia. I'm sure that I heard about those things. I'm sure I heard about those things when President Obama was in office, but to hear her take on it and how all of those great initiatives came to pass really just brought it front and center to my mind, how instrumental they were in changing the way this country thinks about food and nutrition. And I remember during President Obama's time in office was the first time I ever heard the term food desert, where there are places in our country where people really cannot find fresh fruits and vegetables. And in a first world country like America, that just should not be. So to hear about all the initiatives that she was able to achieve, working on bringing nutrition and health to the forefront of this country where obesity and medication is such a thriving industry, working on keeping people obese and keeping people on medication is a thriving industry, or has been for years in this country. To see that she was working to stop that was just amazing to me, and it just brought back home that I need to focus on my own health and making sure that my family continues to eat healthy as well. One of the other great things that First Lady Michelle Obama was able to accomplish was working for the education of girls all over the world, to make sure that the education of girls was prioritized in the UK, in Africa, in the Middle East, just making sure that girls get educated, because in so many cultures, girls are not even wanted by some families. A lot of men just want sons, and then even when they have a daughter, they just don't want her to get an education. Daughters are, I think being a mom is a great accomplishment. There are also many other great endeavors that women can undertake. Women can get into science and medicine and politics and education. And I think that Michelle Obama's mission was to inspire girls to be great. No matter where they came from, no matter what their beginnings were, they had the right and the potential to be great. And she was a living testimony of that, coming from a family that didn't have a whole lot of money, but what they had was love, and they had the willingness to sacrifice everything for their children so their children could have the best education and they could have the best opportunities in life. And so she inspired girls all over the world to just use their intelligence and push forward to have their own careers and to be great in their own right. And that was one thing, if I didn't say that earlier, Michelle Obama was great in her own right before she ever met this Hawaiian guy named Barack Hussein Obama. She was a practicing attorney. She worked in the medical field, in the hospitals. She was just, and still is, a very powerful, intelligent woman who has so much to contribute to our world. One last thing I want to say about this book before I give my rating is I love the way Michelle Obama described her parenting of her daughters throughout her marriage to former President Obama. Prioritizing family was number one on her list at every turn. No matter what was happening, her daughters came first. She always tried to make sure that she was there for them at the end of the day, for dinner, that they had fun, that they had lives that were as normal as possible. And she tried to make every arrangement that she could, even when they were in the White House, to make sure that they had friends and they developed good friendships, and that they had hobbies that they were involved in, whether it was tennis or basketball or whatever they might be interested in doing, or even in ballet or whatever they wanted to do. She made it her business to make sure that her daughters had what they needed to thrive. And that was very clear throughout this entire book. Before President Obama was elected and after, she prioritized her job as a mom number one in her life. And I really got a lot out of that, and it really resonates with working moms, that we always have to juggle and shift things around to make sure that our children have what they need. And she definitely did that throughout her time being married to the president, and throughout her time in the White House. She made sure that her children were number one. So I would give this book a 5 out of 5 stars because I think it was very well written. It told Michelle's story so well, from the time that she grew up in Chicago to falling in love with the former President Barack Obama, to becoming the First Lady of the United States. Her story is powerful, it's encouraging, and I do suggest that you read it. So thanks so much for joining me for this book review. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. If you're not already a part of the Piece of the Plans fam, I hope you'll take a moment and hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell so you won't miss out on any of the fun right here on this channel. I hope that you have a great week. I hope you have lots of good books to read, and I'll see you next time. I hope your week is full of love, joy, and most of all, peace.